The galaxy was older than any memory that even the Council could trace. Stars had formed and died, civilizations had risen and faded, and yet the Council remained. Composed of many species, each unique in form, thought, and purpose, it had governed the flow of trade, knowledge, and diplomacy for countless cycles. Its chambers were vast, filled with crystal screens, floating holograms, and a hum of energy that reminded every visitor of the universe's careful balance. For millennia, the Council had watched the humans. Strange, unpredictable beings with fragile bodies and short lifespans, humans were not the strongest nor the most intelligent in conventional ways. Yet they had a stubbornness, a creativity, and a resilience that no species could ignore. They had solved problems others would abandon, survived dangers others would avoid, and made decisions that seemed illogical only to produce astonishing results. And now they were leaving. The message had arrived silently. No fanfare, no threats, no explanations. Simply a transmission from Earth, then from human colonies scattered across nearby systems. Humans were departing this sector. They were abandoning their seats, dismantling their stations, and withdrawing entirely from Council oversight. The Council could not understand it. Ambassadors of the Council gathered quickly. Each species had a representative, tall or short, scaled or soft-skinned, winged or limbless, all converging in the Grand Hall. The hall stretched higher than any city building, with transparent walls showing a panorama of stars beyond. The Council's deliberations had often been calm, methodical, and long. But this announcement stirred chaos. "Humans are leaving," said Zinrath, the emissary from the crystalline world of Lysara. His voice resonated through the hall, each syllable vibrating the air. "Without explanation, without reason. They do not ask our council. They do not even inform us of their plan." "Perhaps they are fleeing some danger," suggested Malik of the Averin, a species known for its intelligence networks. "They always exaggerate threats. They may be overreacting." "No," replied Tavar of the Hashari. "Humans do not flee. I have studied them for centuries. They do not abandon without a reason. They think, plan, and act. Their departure is deliberate. There is a purpose we cannot see yet." The Council debated endlessly. Some feared collapse, others believed humans were foolish. In the end, it was decided that a delegation would be sent to observe, to see firsthand what humans were doing. The observers traveled through the void in sleek ships that glimmered like liquid metal. Their journey took them to the edge of the human sector, a region of space that had once been bustling with trade, energy stations, and human colonies. Now, it was silent. At first glance, the emptiness seemed like abandonment. The stations were no longer manned. Ships that had once traveled in constant movement floated in orbit, unmoving, as if the humans had vanished. But as the observers drew closer, they noticed subtle signs of care. Doors and docking ports were closed gently. Maintenance drones moved quietly in orbit, and automated systems hummed with efficiency. Nothing had been destroyed. Nothing had been left to fail. "They leave as if they are teaching us a lesson," said Ylkera of the Serene. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "They do not need to fight us. They do not need to challenge us directly. They simply leave, and the consequences will unfold." The emissaries landed on the main human station, a massive structure that had once served as a hub for trade and diplomacy. Walking through the corridors, they found no human presence, but everything was intact. Screens displayed data logs, systems operated flawlessly, and even the smallest details, from energy conduits to life support modules, were perfectly maintained. "This is remarkable," muttered Zinrath. "They leave, but they do not abandon responsibility. They leave order behind. No other species would have thought of this." Outside, The observers could see human ships departing in formation. There was no panic, no rushing, no disorder. Ships moved with a calm precision, as if every action had been planned for centuries. From the ships, drones dispersed into nearby systems, quietly maintaining resource networks, repairing stations, and ensuring continuity. The humans were gone, yet the systems ran as if they were still present. "This is not weakness," said Tavar. "This is strategy." Days passed. The emissaries observed silently, trying to interpret the humans' reasoning. Council ships attempted to contact the human command, but messages went unanswered. Humans communicated only indirectly, using automated channels and encoded data streams. Each attempt to provoke or persuade a reaction was met with calm efficiency. Systems corrected themselves, inefficiencies were resolved, and the observers were subtly guided to the information humans wanted them to see. In the observation chamber of the human station, holographic projections displayed complex models of energy flow, trade routes, and resource distribution. The emissaries could see that humans had designed adaptive algorithms that responded instantly to any change in demand or supply. Even if the Council interfered, the systems would adjust and maintain stability. "Everything they leave behind is a mirror," said Malik, "a reflection of their intelligence. We cannot act without revealing our own weaknesses." The realization spread through the delegation like a quiet storm. Humans had not left recklessly. They had left deliberately, and in doing so had turned the very Council into students of their design. The departure was not a retreat. It was a demonstration of foresight, of patience, of strategy beyond immediate understanding. At night, in the observation decks overlooking the stars, the emissaries would watch human ships disappear into the distance, leaving trails of faint energy signatures that slowly faded into darkness. Some speculated about the humans' destination, wondering if they were fleeing, exploring, or hiding. Yet the more they observed, the more it became clear that humans did not flee. They advanced. They moved to positions beyond immediate view, gathering knowledge, building capacity, and preparing for a future that the Council could not yet imagine. Council members returned to their debates with new concern. The initial fear of abandonment had grown into a quiet respect, tinged with unease. If humans could leave an entire sector in silence and yet maintain perfect control from afar, what else could they achieve? How far did their influence extend? And most importantly, how long had the humans planned this departure? "I have studied humans for many cycles," said Tavar. "I have watched their history, their decisions, their failures, and their successes. They do not act in haste. If they leave, it is not because they are weak or scared. It is because they know something we do not, something that we cannot yet perceive." The Council realized that it had underestimated humans. What seemed like a simple withdrawal was, in truth, a demonstration of superior planning and patience. Every system, every colony, every energy network humans left behind was not abandoned. It was a lesson. And the Council itself, in all its wisdom and power, was now part of that lesson. As the human ships vanished into the darkness of deep space, the emissaries watched in silence. For the first time in centuries, the Council understood that humans were not merely participants in galactic politics. They were architects of outcomes, unseen yet pervasive, patient yet decisive. And in leaving, humans had turned observation into an opportunity for the Council to reflect on its own limitations. The night sky of the human sector was calm. Stars twinkled as they had for eons. But now, among the Council emissaries, a quiet tension grew. Humans had departed silently, but their absence was louder than any declaration. It was a challenge, a demonstration, and perhaps a warning. The future was being shaped by hands the Council could neither see nor fully comprehend. And in that silence, The council began to understand that the humans were no ordinary species. They were planners, thinkers, and teachers, leaving a legacy that would endure long after their ships had vanished. The question was no longer whether humans would return, but when and what lessons the council would have learned by then. Months passed since the council emissaries had observed the humans' departure. Initially, the council had believed that humans leaving the sector would be a minor inconvenience, a temporary absence in trade, oversight, and coordination. But as the cycles passed, it became clear that humans' withdrawal was far more complex. Their absence was not weakness, it was strategy. Council members were growing uneasy. Systems humans had managed, energy grids, trade routes, resource stations, continued to operate perfectly at first. But subtle signs of strain were emerging. Supply networks were slowing in ways the council could not predict. Communication delays were becoming more frequent. Minor conflicts over resource allocations began appearing in sectors where humans had previously ensured harmony. "It is as if the humans are testing us," Tavar said quietly during a council session. His voice carried calm authority, but there was a hint of unease. "Everything functions now, but the stress points are being revealed. They are forcing us to notice what we would normally overlook." Malik leaned forward, scanning the holographic display of the sector. "Their technology adapts automatically. Every intervention we attempt is countered by unseen systems. Even the energy grids adjust themselves without human input. They planned for our interference before we even arrived." Zinrath shook his crystalline head. "We are not being outnumbered. We are being outthought. Their absence is a tool, their silence a weapon, and we are unaware of the full extent." The council decided to send more observers, hoping to learn humans' ultimate goal. Ships traveled to distant colonies, tracking movements and monitoring systems. Yet everywhere they went, humans had prepared. Automated management systems were intelligent, adaptive, and surprisingly subtle. Every minor issue was corrected before it became noticeable. Every small decision the council attempted to make was anticipated. On a distant mining planet, emissaries watched drones carefully manage mineral extraction. Human technology adjusted energy output, repaired minor faults, and redistributed resources automatically. The system even accounted for potential interference from other species. The emissaries realized that humans had not simply left the sector. They had left control in capable hands, hands that were themselves invisible. "This is remarkable," Ylkara whispered. "They are gone, yet their influence spreads everywhere. They do not need to return immediately to maintain order. They are patient. They know how long it takes for systems to show strain, and they wait." Meanwhile, in deep space, humans were quietly establishing outposts on distant planets. These outposts were not heavily guarded, nor were they obvious. Small ships carried supplies, personnel, and advanced systems, all working in silence. Humans did not display power. They displayed patience. Every action was measured, deliberate, and hidden. From these outposts, humans began influencing distant trade networks. They adjusted supply routes, corrected imbalances, and ensured that critical resources flowed efficiently. But they did not do this openly. The council could detect subtle anomalies, but the origin was almost impossible to trace. Human strategy was not domination. It was guidance from the shadows, using knowledge, intelligence, and foresight. Within the council, disagreement grew. Some species believed humans had abandoned their responsibilities recklessly. Others, like Tavar, warned that humans were far from reckless. They were planning several steps ahead, observing the council, and allowing the consequences of absence to teach lessons. "Every choice we make now," Tavar explained, "is under observation. Humans are letting us struggle, just enough to reveal our weaknesses, and yet they correct the failures that could become catastrophic. They are teaching without appearing to teach. Council factions began attempting direct contact with human outposts, hoping to negotiate or persuade them to return. But every attempt failed. Humans were polite, precise, and indirect. Responses were encoded, subtle, and designed to provide guidance without revealing too much. Council members were forced to adapt their own methods, learning patience, creativity, and the value of observation. Some emissaries began to notice patterns. Humans had designed their systems to adapt to Council interference in ways that mimicked human reasoning. Energy grids would reroute power when needed. Trade networks would automatically redirect shipments to prevent shortages. Supply stations could calculate demand before it arose. Humans had left a silent intelligence behind, one that functioned autonomously yet aligned with their ultimate plan. Malik, frustrated, exclaimed in a council session, "We try to manage these systems, but every action we take is corrected before it has impact. Humans are not present, yet they control outcomes. How is this possible?" Tavar smiled faintly. "It is possible because humans think differently. They anticipate, plan, and allow time to work in their favor. They are not limited by immediate concerns or by ego. They act for long-term stability, even from a distance." The Council's struggle intensified. Minor failures in communication led to delays in shipments. Energy surges threatened to overload stations. Political disagreements emerged among Council species as blame was assigned. All these crises were subtle, never catastrophic, but enough to expose weaknesses in coordination and patience. Humans' absence was becoming a silent teacher, demonstrating that even powerful civilizations were not infallible. Meanwhile, humans in their distant outposts continued quietly observing. They did not intervene directly unless necessary. Their focus was on long-term outcomes, adjusting subtly to maintain balance while allowing the Council to learn from its mistakes. They used automated systems, intelligence gathering, and predictive calculations to shape events without revealing their hand. Even small actions had profound effects. A trade route slightly delayed by human-controlled automated ships forced a Council species to negotiate with others differently. A minor energy imbalance in one sector taught another species to prioritize cooperation over competition. Humans' absence created challenges that revealed strengths and weaknesses in the Council's planning, foresight, and patience. Zinrath finally spoke during one session, his voice tinged with respect. "We cannot underestimate them. We thought their departure was chaos, but it is order beyond our comprehension. We must learn to think like them, or we will always be several steps behind." The Council began to recognize that humans' strength lay not in weapons, fleets, or sheer power, but in planning, creativity, and patience. They had created a situation where absence itself became a form of influence. Systems functioned better because humans were gone, and yet humans' guidance shaped every outcome. Council members started to change their approach. They began coordinating more closely, communicating more carefully, and observing more patiently. The human lesson was clear. Success required foresight, understanding, and the ability to anticipate consequences. Even the most skeptical factions could not deny the humans' brilliance. By leaving, humans had forced the Council to confront its own limitations. By remaining calm and silent, humans had turned absence into influence, and by allowing the Council to struggle, humans had revealed the true meaning of strategy and patience. As cycles passed, the human systems continued to operate flawlessly. The Council struggled to adapt, but the lessons became undeniable. Patience, intelligence, and subtle action could achieve results that power alone never could. Humans were teaching without ever being present. Their strategy was elegant, invisible, and unstoppable in its quiet way. From the observation decks of distant outposts, humans watched the Council's responses. They did not interfere unless necessary, but every subtle adjustment, every minor correction, and every prediction was noted. Humans were guiding the galaxy without confrontation, using intelligence and foresight rather than force. "This is how humans act," Tavar said in the Grand Hall, a rare smile on his face. "They do not seek to dominate. They do not rush. They do not fight unnecessarily. And yet by leaving, they have changed everything. By being absent, they have shaped outcomes more effectively than any intervention could." Council members began to accept the truth. Humans were not unpredictable, nor were they careless. Their absence was deliberate. Their strategy was long-term. Their influence was subtle but complete. And the consequences of ignoring them could be disastrous. Even in their absence, humans were everywhere. Systems adapted, trade flowed, resources were balanced, problems were anticipated and solved. Humans had become invisible architects of galactic order, teaching patience, foresight, and intelligence in ways no other species could. As the observation cycle ended, the Council realized a profound truth. The human's strength was not in the present, but in the ability to think across time, to plan for outcomes before they occurred, and to allow others to learn from the consequences. They had left, but their influence endured. They had departed silently, but their strategy would echo for generations. And somewhere, beyond the reach of Council eyes, humans continued their journey. They moved with calm precision, observing, planning, and preparing for the future. They left the Council to suffer the lessons of absence, to struggle with unseen challenges, and to grow wiser. The galaxy was quiet, yet alive with the invisible hand of humanity. Their strategy had begun, and the Council was only the first to learn its depth. Patience, planning, and foresight were weapons more powerful than fleets or armies, and humans wielded them silently, deliberately, and brilliantly. Time moved differently for humans. While the Council wrestled with immediate concerns, humans observed calmly from afar, their plans continuing in silence. The consequences of their departure began to ripple outward, slowly and methodically, revealing weaknesses the Council had never anticipated. At first, these were minor issues. Energy grids in one sector showed small fluctuations. Trade shipments arrived slightly later than expected. Resource stations reported tiny imbalances. Individually, these were insignificant, but cumulatively, they began to reveal the limits of the Council's coordination. Council sessions became increasingly tense. Representatives argued over responsibilities, strategies, and blame. What had seemed like a smooth operation during human presence was now a fragile network, vulnerable to missteps and miscommunication. Malik of the Avarin was the first to speak in frustration during a session. "We have always relied on humans to maintain these systems. They depart, and suddenly everything we assumed was stable is failing. Minor issues compound into complications we cannot predict." Tavar of the Hashari remained calm. "We have underestimated humans for too long. Their absence was intended to reveal our weaknesses. Every problem we face now was anticipated. And it is not chaos. They leave us the chance to adapt, to grow stronger, if we can learn." Some factions were unwilling to see the lesson. Zinrath of Lysara's crystalline form shimmered with tension. "Adapt? We are being forced to act without knowledge of the full picture. The humans left us to flounder, and yet we are supposed to remain patient? This is unfair and dangerous." Despite the disagreements, the Council had no choice but to act. They divided responsibilities across species, attempting to stabilize the sector. Each faction coordinated, rerouted energy grids, adjusted trade schedules, and repaired infrastructure. Yet every move seemed anticipated. Systems adapted automatically. Minor errors self-corrected. Even when a faction tried to assert dominance, the humans' invisible management ensured equilibrium. In the meantime, humans quietly expanded their influence elsewhere. From hidden outposts, their ships maintained distant trade routes, corrected small energy imbalances, and ensured that resource shortages never became catastrophic. Every subtle adjustment ensured that the sector continued functioning while allowing the Council to feel the strain of absence. Humans' presence was felt without ever being seen. Ilkara of the Serene spoke in one council session. "Observe what happens when we attempt to intervene. Every adjustment we make is countered by invisible processes. Humans are teaching us patience and foresight. They do not interfere directly, yet every outcome aligns with their plan. They are everywhere and nowhere at once." Internal conflicts began to rise among Council species. Some factions blamed each other for perceived mismanagement, unaware that the humans had intentionally designed the systems to reveal such tensions. Minor disputes over trade routes became heated debates. Energy rationing disagreements stretched across planetary systems. Communication networks, once reliable, experienced delays due to natural pressures exacerbated by Council missteps. Malik leaned over a holographic table, frowning at the data. Every delay, every error, every misunderstanding is small, yet collectively, it exposes our inability to coordinate. Humans have left us challenges we cannot ignore. Even the most skilled Council technicians struggled. They had long relied on humans' unique problem-solving ability. Humans thought differently, anticipating outcomes several cycles in advance. Their systems accounted for variables the Council did not fully understand. Attempts to control the automated processes often failed, as if the systems were aware of the observer's intentions and adapted in response. Outside the Council chambers, emissaries continued to study human systems. In one star system, drones managed mining operations, adjusting energy flow and transport routes with precision. Trade networks rerouted automatically to prevent bottlenecks. Resource allocation responded dynamically to projected shortages. Humans' legacy of silent guidance became increasingly apparent. They had left the Council with control, but only enough to expose its limitations. Council debates grew more intense. Some demanded that humans be forced to return, while others argued that forcing their return would play into humans' strategy. Every faction realized that the humans' patience and foresight were unmatched. Tavar addressed the Council calmly. "We cannot force humans to return. That is not their lesson. They allow us to struggle, but not to fail catastrophically. They teach us restraint, foresight, and intelligence. If we understand this, we can grow stronger. If we ignore it, we will continue to stumble." Despite Tavar's reasoning, impatience spread among Council factions. Some attempted direct observation of distant human outposts. Each mission revealed the same pattern. Humans' operations were subtle, precise, and self-correcting. Automated systems managed tasks before the Council even recognized problems. Humans were everywhere in influence, yet nowhere in visibility. Zinrath's voice trembled with frustration during one session. "We are being tested in ways we do not understand. Every system functions, yet we feel the pressure of responsibility. The humans have left, yet their lessons are inescapable. We must find a way to respond." Tavar responded quietly. "The response is not confrontation. The response is observation, patience, and adaptation. Humans are not enemies. They are teachers. Their absence is the challenge. We must rise to it." Council members began experimenting with subtle coordination techniques. They developed new methods of observation, improved data sharing systems, and created contingency plans. Slowly, they began to stabilize sectors that had experienced minor failures. Each improvement was incremental, but it reflected growth. Humans had designed absence to teach adaptability, cooperation, and foresight. Meanwhile, humans monitored from afar. Their ships moved calmly, almost invisible against the stars. They intervened only when necessary to prevent catastrophic failure. But even these interventions were minimal. Their strategy relied on the Council learning from struggle, not from rescue. The Council began to recognize the lesson. Human strength was not in immediate action or brute force. It was in anticipation, planning, and subtle guidance. They shaped events without ever being present, demonstrating that patience, intelligence, and moral clarity could surpass direct control. Gradually, Council factions began to cooperate more effectively. Trade disputes were resolved through negotiation rather than imposition. Energy allocation was managed through predictive modeling rather than reactionary measures. Communication networks were repaired and improved with foresight. Slowly, the Council adapted to the humans' lessons, learning patience, strategy, and the power of indirect influence. Despite progress, challenges persisted. Humans' influence created situations where the Council's limitations were always apparent. Minor failures continued to appear, revealing flaws in coordination, trust, and foresight. Yet with each struggle, the Council grew wiser. They began to anticipate problems, plan for contingencies, and coordinate across species with unprecedented care. In distant space, humans observed quietly. They had left the Council to struggle, but their systems ensured stability. They did not intervene unnecessarily. They allowed the Council to experience consequences and to adapt. Their strategy was deliberate, precise, and invisible. "The humans think in ways we cannot yet comprehend," Malik admitted during a session. "They anticipate cycles, consequences, and actions far beyond our perception. Their absence is the ultimate test of our intelligence and coordination." Tavar nodded. "They leave, and yet they guide. We are learning that strength is not always force. Strategy, patience, and insight shape outcomes far more than control ever could. Humans have left, but they are teaching in ways we cannot ignore." The Council's struggle continued for cycles, but slowly, progress emerged. Factions coordinated more efficiently, trade stabilized, and energy flows were managed with foresight. Systems adjusted automatically, as humans had designed them to do, but now the Council began to understand the underlying principles. They were learning to think like humans, anticipating consequences, planning long-term, and balancing subtle influences. Outside the Grand Hall, the galaxy continued its quiet rhythm. Stars glittered, planets spun in steady orbits, and human ships moved silently in distant regions. Humans' strategy was unfolding perfectly. Their absence was felt in every Council decision, every minor failure, and every correction. Yet it was also a lesson. Even the most powerful civilizations could grow stronger when challenged thoughtfully. In private chambers, Tavar reflected on the situation. The humans are not here in body, but they are everywhere in consequence. Their departure has forced the Council to grow, adapt, and improve. And that is their lesson. Patience, foresight, and understanding are stronger than presence alone. Zinrath, once frustrated and impatient, finally began to see the truth. They have left us to struggle, and in doing so, they have taught us the value of careful thought and observation. We are learning to anticipate, to coordinate, and to think beyond immediate results. Malik agreed, a note of awe in his voice. Humans are extraordinary. Even in absence, they shape events. Even in silence, they guide. Even in leaving, they teach. The galaxy was calm, yet alive with invisible influence. Humans had departed, but their systems, strategies, and subtle interventions continued to shape outcomes. The Council struggled, learned, and adapted. The lessons were clear. Patience, intelligence, and subtle guidance could achieve more than force. Observation, foresight, and cooperation were more powerful than direct control. And somewhere, in distant stars beyond observation, humans continued their journey. Their plans moved forward silently, deliberately, and brilliantly. They had left the Council to struggle, to learn, and to grow. And when the time came, humans would return, not as conquerors, but as mentors, demonstrating the power of quiet strategy, foresight, and patience. The Council, for the first time, understood a fundamental truth about humanity. They were forces of subtle power, architects of outcomes, and teachers without visible presence. Their departure was not abandonment, it was guidance. Their silence was not weakness, it was influence, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had changed since humans had quietly left the sector. For cycles, the Council had struggled, learned, and adapted under the subtle influence of their absence. What had begun as confusion and tension had slowly transformed into understanding. The Council had discovered the true lesson humans had designed. Patience, foresight, and indirect guidance could accomplish far more than force or domination. Yet, the Council was not done. Even after months of observation and careful adjustment, they still did not fully comprehend the depth of human strategy. Systems were stable, trade networks flowed, and energy grids operated smoothly, but the lessons continued to unfold. The Council realized that humans had deliberately created challenges that revealed not only technological weaknesses, but also political and social vulnerabilities within the Council itself. Tavar of the Hishari spoke during a session, his calm voice carrying across the chamber. "We have learned much, yet there is more to understand. Humans do not act for immediate reward or recognition. They anticipate outcomes many cycles in advance. Their absence was a test, not of technology, but of wisdom, cooperation, and foresight. We have struggled, yes, but we have grown." Zinrath, once frustrated and impatient, nodded. "They have forced us to examine our assumptions. We relied too heavily on systems we did not fully understand. We assumed control would suffice. Humans have shown us that observation, patience, and careful planning are far more powerful than control alone." Malik of the Averin added, "And yet, despite our struggles, nothing has collapsed. Their systems were designed to prevent catastrophe even while allowing us to face consequences. They have guided without ever appearing to guide. It is remarkable." The Council began to see the full picture. Humans had departed not to abandon, but to elevate the Council. They had left systems in perfect operation, but had deliberately created subtle stress points that exposed weaknesses in coordination, communication, and decision-making. Each challenge was a lesson, teaching the Council to anticipate outcomes, adapt quickly, and cooperate more effectively across species. In distant space, humans observed quietly. They did not intervene unless absolutely necessary. They allowed the Council to struggle, to adapt, and to learn. Their presence was invisible, yet their influence was everywhere. Their strategy was elegant, subtle, and brilliant. From hidden outposts, humans monitored energy networks, trade routes, and resource stations. They adjusted supply chains, corrected small imbalances, and ensured that no crisis became catastrophic. Every intervention was minimal, designed to preserve learning while maintaining stability. Humans were shaping the galaxy without ever appearing to intervene. The Council, now more patient and aware, began to coordinate more effectively. Trade disputes were resolved through negotiation and foresight. Energy networks were managed proactively, anticipating demand rather than reacting to shortages. Communication systems were optimized to prevent misunderstandings. Slowly, the Council was learning to think in the way humans had planned: long-term, subtle, and strategic. As cycles passed, the Council reached a moment of clarity. They began to understand the true purpose behind the humans' departure. Humans had never sought power or control. They had sought influence without domination, guidance without coercion. They had allowed the Council to face challenges, to make mistakes, and to grow stronger. The humans' absence was not a void. It was an opportunity. Tavar addressed the Council once more. "The humans have left, yet they guide us still. Their lesson is complete. Patience, observation, and understanding are stronger than force. We have struggled, we have adapted, and we have grown. Now we understand that humans are not ordinary beings. They are architects of outcomes, teachers without visible presence. Even the most skeptical members of the council could not deny the truth. Humans had shown them that absence could be more instructive than presence, that subtlety could outweigh power, and that intelligence and foresight were the greatest forms of influence. In distant sectors, human ships continued their silent work. They were not returning yet, for their lesson was ongoing. They allowed the council to implement changes, observe consequences, and adapt independently. Every adjustment, every correction, every subtle intervention was part of a larger plan. Humans had left the council to suffer the small challenges of absence, but they had ensured that the sector would remain stable and secure. The council began to apply the lessons learned. Systems were redesigned to be adaptive, flexible, and resilient. Trade networks were optimized with long-term projections. Energy and resource distribution accounted for unforeseen fluctuations. Communication and coordination across species improved. Slowly, the council was transforming, becoming wiser, stronger, and more capable. Malik, observing the changes, spoke quietly. We were tested without knowing it. Humans did not intervene directly, yet their influence shaped every outcome. Their strategy is unparalleled. They teach by allowing us to experience, to adapt, and to grow. Zinrath, finally understanding, added, They leave, yet they are present. They are patient, yet decisive. They are subtle, yet powerful. We are fortunate to learn from them, even in absence. The galaxy itself seemed to reflect this transformation. Systems operated smoothly, trade flowed efficiently. Resource stations managed themselves intelligently. Minor crises were resolved automatically or through careful planning. The humans' influence was everywhere, yet invisible. Their strategy had unfolded perfectly, proving the power of patience, foresight, and indirect guidance. Finally, after many cycles, humans prepared to return to the council. They had left not to abandon, but to teach. Their silence had been a lesson in strategy, patience, and wisdom. Their absence had revealed the council's limitations and guided its growth. And now, humans were ready to show themselves not as conquerors, but as partners and mentors. When the first human ships appeared again, the council watched in awe. There was no fanfare, no display of power, no demands for recognition. Humans arrived calmly, precisely, and with quiet confidence. They did not boast or claim authority. They simply returned, their presence a reminder of the lessons already learned. Tavar addressed the assembled council. The humans have returned, not as conquerors, but as teachers. Their strategy was perfect. Their absence taught us patience, foresight, and subtle influence. And now, with their return, we are ready to apply what we have learned to the entire sector. The humans did not speak immediately. They allowed the council to take its time, to reflect, and to understand the consequences of its actions. Then, in clear, simple communication, they shared insights, guidance, and observations. Every suggestion was designed to empower, not control. Every instruction encouraged understanding, cooperation, and strategic thinking. The council listened. Slowly, they implemented human guidance, adjusting systems, refining processes, and improving coordination. The lessons of absence and struggle were now reinforced by the wisdom of presence. Humanity had returned to the galaxy, not to dominate, but to elevate. Across sectors, the effects of humans' strategy became clear. Trade networks became more efficient than ever. Resource management was precise and adaptable. Energy systems were optimized for stability. Minor conflicts between species were resolved through understanding and foresight rather than force. The galaxy was stronger, more resilient, and better prepared for challenges, all because humans had departed, observed, and returned at the right moment. Tavar, looking across the council chambers, spoke with quiet pride. The humans have shown us what true strength means. It is not fleets or weapons. It is patience, planning, and the ability to guide without controlling. It is understanding consequences and acting wisely. They have left, and yet they were present. They have returned, and we are better for it. Zinrath nodded. Their strategy is brilliant. They teach not by force, not by orders, but by allowing us to learn, struggle, and grow. We have finally understood the depth of their power, Malik added, and the lesson extends beyond the council. Any species can learn from humans. Patience, foresight, subtlety, and cooperation, these are the true tools of influence. Humans are not merely participants in galactic affairs. They are architects of outcomes, teachers without visible presence, masters of strategy. The humans did not need to respond. Their actions, their absence, and their return spoke volumes. They had left the council to suffer the consequences of absence, to struggle, and to grow wiser. They had returned to reinforce the lessons, to guide without commanding, and to show that true power lies not in dominance, but in understanding, foresight, and subtle influence. As the galaxy settled into a new rhythm, the council reflected on the extraordinary events. The humans had departed in silence, leaving systems intact but revealing weaknesses. They had allowed the council to struggle, forcing growth and adaptation. And finally, they had returned, not to assert authority, but to mentor and share wisdom. In silence, humans had shaped the course of civilizations. In absence, they had revealed the importance of patience, foresight, and cooperation. And in their return, they had elevated the galaxy, showing that true strength is measured not by power, but by intelligence, strategy, and the ability to guide others toward growth. The council had suffered, learned, and adapted. Humanity had taught them a lesson they would never forget. And somewhere, beyond the reach of the stars they watched, humans continued to move with calm purpose, ready to shape the future, silently, patiently, brilliantly, and always with foresight. The galaxy had been tested. The council had struggled, and humans, in silence, had proven once more that true power comes not from control, but from wisdom, patience, and subtle influence.